When you look back on your life, you should be proud of all of it. I'm just getting started. Somebody said, Chris, when are you going to slow down? Never. Hey guys, today I want to talk about a concept called distortion. And distortion is what results from having too many regulations or too many laws or too many artificial things that get in the way of our creativity. I read a quote the other day, and it's by Pekka Himonen, and it says, "It is not possible to create interesting things in a constant hurry or in a regulated way." And I really like that, because as you try to understand the concepts of freedom and what makes freedom work, freedom isn't just a natural result or accidental combination of things, and freedom doesn't result from the blessings of a government bestowing on us freedom. Freedom comes from individuals. It's a God-given thing, and freedom leads to prosperity. The more freedom that there is to create and to produce and to be inventive, the more prosperity that there is. The less freedom that there is, the less prosperity there is, because people aren't as free to innovate. They don't have as much ownership. They don't have as much stake in the game of what's going on, and so they don't have their heart all the way into it. I think we can all think of times when we've been involved in things where we weren't in control, or we didn't feel like our voice mattered, or we weren't real contributors, and we just kind of played a half game with it. But when we totally sell out, we know that we're committed, we know that our efforts count for something, and we can see that we're free to contribute and free to be a part of what's going on, we take more ownership and we give more of ourselves to the project. Well, in a bigger way, that's what happens with freedom and prosperity. In free environments, prosperity is more likely to occur. Now, this leads me to the concept of distortion. And distortion is a term that's been assigned to what happens when governments or bureaucracies, it could be in the work world too, when they put artificial barriers into the normal activities of groups or individuals or people. And a good example of this is that there was a time when I was a kid growing up, station wagons were common, and you might even remember these things. They were pretty big, and they had wood grain on the sides, and a lot of them had back seats that faced backwards, and didn't even have seat belts, so you could sit there, and you could see who was about to hit you. And those station wagons were popular cars, and most families had them, and and they were kind of the standard car for the family. Well, they totally disappeared. They became extinct. Now, what happened to them? Was it some big ice age that came along and killed off the station wagons? Did it have something to do with global warming? Was it a meteor that landed on the earth and killed all the station wagons? No, what actually happened was government happened to them. Because they were bigger and they tended to be worse on gas mileage than your smaller cars, government put in corporate average fuel economy standards, the CAFE standards, and that basically took station wagons out of the lineup because they were too bad on gas. And because at the time the corporate average fuel economy didn't apply to light trucks, instead of making station wagons, all the automotive manufacturers simply switched to making a brand new invention called a sport utility vehicle, which is now by many termed to be the great Satan, because they waste gas too compared to other smaller, lighter cars. Well, when you see something like the station wagon go extinct, and I understand, maybe it's not stylishly bad to get rid of all those wood grain contraptions, I understand, but that was distortion put in place by a law that changed behavior to go around that. An example I might use is that if the government came in and told you in your house, in your living room, for your own good, you had to erect a big pillar right in the middle of your living room, and the government said you had to do it, so you did it. And then all of a sudden your traffic patterns through that room change because there's a pillar in the way. And you might even have to rearrange furniture to see the television or to visit with other people in a more effective way. So now your behavior has been distorted by an artificial partition that was placed in there from an outside power. That's what government law does to the free innovation that people would normally have. And the more of those partitions are placed in to our lives, if you could picture how silly my illustration gets, once there's a lot of these in your living room, it becomes almost unworkable to the point where you wouldn't even want to go into the living room anymore at all. You just forget that you had the living room. And that's what happens as you go on the slide from free enterprise and freedom and prosperity more and more and more to government control and government laws. They become distortions in what should be a normally free functioning environment, and they stifle innovation. When I was a kid, I remember watching the Schoolhouse Rock series of little cartoon snippets on Saturday morning. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember those. And one of them was about a bill on Capitol Hill. And they talked about how it was a little cartoon that showed this little bill going up the steps of Capitol Hill, and now I'm off to the Capitol, and they had this cute little song. And it was the process being explained through a cartoon of how a new law in the United States goes from proposal to law, and the process through which it would go. And it's interesting, and it was a very cute little cartoon that was instructive to teach me, at least, on how the process worked. But I remember even as a little kid watching that cartoon and thinking to myself, well, what happens over time as all these laws get created? There needs to be another cartoon for, sorry about that, it's windy out here in southwest Florida, there needs to be another cartoon for how to get rid of bills, how to take some of these bills off the book, because after a while you just have so many bills that nobody would be free. There'd be so many partitions in the living room that we wouldn't even be able to move. And a lot of us think that's what's going on right now in our society. There's so many laws that have been created for so many things. We have such distortion in our economy from external partitions placed in the way of our behavior that our innovation is hampered. And because of that, we've lost a lot of our manufacturing base to overseas because of the distortion of our monetary policy, where the Federal Reserve is playing with interest rates and keeping them artificially low. That causes reactions in the market because easy credit was available for so long. That can cover the fact that people aren't saving, and it makes them buy houses bigger than they would normally buy, and then that creates a bubble. The housing values go up exorbitantly beyond what they should be as valued in a real market, and because of false easy credit and adjustable rate mortgages and all these creative vehicles of finance, we had a housing market, and of course a housing market bubble, and of course that bubble has now burst to the pain of a lot of people. Well, these are all distortions, and these are the kind of things that happen. So we can see nationally how those partitions placed in our way cause non-productive behavior. Well, the other thing too is if you're a leader out there and you're learning to lead, or you're running an organization, or you're a manager in your corporation or whatever, you can follow the same principles. These principles are true nationally, but they're also true organizationally. Freedom is better than distortion. The more dogmatic top-down control that you have, the less innovation and creativity is going to flow up from the bottom, and we're stifling the largest source of creative input, and that's the power of individuals to solve problems at their level, where they are, right where they're at with what they have. Now, when we talk about launching a leadership revolution, that's what we mean. Empowering people to do the best they can with what they have in the moment, attacking the status quo that they see around them with the tools and abilities that they already have, and doing something productive with that. So remember, distortion causes a lack of productivity. Freedom leads to prosperity. We'll talk to you guys next time with some more.